Welcome, everyone. I'm Shahar Sadeh. I'm the founding director of Adamah, New York Community Impact Hub. Thank you for joining today the Local Law 97, a practical guide for Jewish organizations webinar. I want to thank you for taking the time. I also want to thank the UJA Federation of New York for their partnership and support, as well as the Mayor's Office Community Affair Unit for co-sponsoring today's event and collaborating to make this event a success. At Adamah, New York, we inspire and empower people and institutions to feel and to act on the deep connection between people and planet. We're catalyzing cultural change and systemic change through three main areas of engagement: Jewish environmental education and community building. And we have many events and opportunities throughout the year for gathering and opportunities to celebrate together. And I can actually start by saying happy early Tu B'Shvat. In 2 weeks, we'll be celebrating the New Year's of the trees, a Jewish environmental holiday that honors trees, fruits, and the natural world. It invites us to show gratitude and respect and consider the proper stewardship of our shared environment and our only planet. We are holding a Tu B'Shvat Seder on February 12 in Harlem. You're all invited. We'll share the details in the chat. And for those who can join but want to use our wonderful new Tu B'Shvat Haggadah, you can download it from our website. We can also drop that in the chat. The second area of engagement is leadership development. We have a wonderful Jewish youth climate movement, very active in New York with several chapters. If you have teens in your institutions, and looking at the registration for today, you all do, please feel free to connect and learn more about the many opportunities for teens, including a 3-day Shabbaton this coming March for them. It's a lot of fun, so please encourage your youth directors or whomever is the responsible person in your institution to reach out and learn more. For synagogues leaders, many of them are on the call today, both executive directors, rabbis, and other committee lay leaders. We have an upcoming free 2 days workshop packed with a lot of good stuff that is connected to climate action in your institution. If you haven't heard about it, read it in the chat, tell it to your rabbi, to the executive director, to interested community members, and join us. And the third area of work for Adamah, New York, and the most important for our call today is, of course, climate action. We support Jewish organizations and help them transition to better, more sustainable management of their institutions. Beyond these public webinars that are open to everyone, and you can find previous webinars on our webpage, the organization we support are members of the Jewish Climate Coalition. This is a network of over 415 Jewish organizations who are provided with structure, guidance, resources, and financial support to help them understand, act, and eventually implement climate action. I want to mention that we do give matching grants and loans, and you'll hear more about it later today. And those might help you with your compliance with LL 97 and other legislation. So if your organization is not a coalition member, please join us. It is free, and we're here to support you. Today's event is one example of how we're focusing on implementation of climate action. LL 97 is one of the most ambitious plans for combating climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the nations. And while things are somewhat uncertain on the federal level right now, with regards to climate legislation, this is absolutely not the case in the city. We are already in the compliance period of the law. Time is of the essence, and reports are due in 3 months. Therefore, today's webinar will mostly be focused on the now and on the how. Our previous webinars on LL 97 focus on understanding the law and how to start preparing your institution for the changes it demands and the various ways of financing those changes. I want to say that there's a lot happening on the climate and sustainability front these days, and it can be overwhelming, and it's not necessarily what you or your institutions want to deal with right now. But there are several support systems that are there for you. Two of them are on the call today, but there are many others on the city and on the state level. And this can be overwhelming, but I encourage you to try and take a few steps to start the process. Measure your energy use and costs, identify area of energy waste, engage in energy efficiency planning, and track your progress. Then you can create a plan. You don't have to call it a plan if it sounds too much to you, and you can take specific steps. And again, this could be something you really don't want to do right now, and another thing on your very long to-do list, but it needs to be done. And if it's any consolation, it's the right thing to do, both for the world and for your organization, that will eventually see more dollars being saved and freed up and being spent on your mission-aligned goals. So today we're going to hear from Ms. Ayeesha Ali, an account manager at the New York Accelerator, who will walk us through the law, its provisions, the expectations for implementation, and the city-based mechanism that exists to support you. And there are many, so listen carefully. And later, we'll hear from Becky O'Brien, our own Adamah Climate Action Fund Director, that will tell us a bit about the grants and free interest loans that we have to offer. And then we'll open for Q&A, and we allowed a lot of time for that, so you can go ahead and prepare them or just drop them in the chat as we go. So Ayeesha, I turn to you.
Thanks for having us, first of all. I'm just going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. Thank you so much for having NYC Accelerator come to present to you today. So I'm an account manager. My name is Ayeesha, and we're here to navigate Local Law 97 together. So first of all, what exactly is NYC Accelerator? So it's a free city program designed to help control costs, meet compliance requirements for any local laws, boost building performance, increase energy savings, and the goal is to reduce carbon emissions across all New York City buildings. So we offer free technical guidance. We'll help identify any pain points in your building, so you can identify building upgrade projects to help meet your emissions limits. And we also have a free training center with videos about local laws, and it helps support a green workforce development as well. So we would connect you with service providers to implement any decarbonization projects that you have in mind. We also have financing specialists on board that can identify any applicable incentives, and we can discuss any financing options as well with you. So any building above 5,000 square feet is eligible. Smaller buildings are referred to partner organizations, and you can either call us or visit our website, and you'll be assigned a dedicated account manager. And you'll receive objective advice customized to your building's needs, and there's no catch or commitment of any sort. You can contact us as many times as you'd like. I have a couple of accounts that maybe I started working with them maybe 2 years ago, and with all the updates with the local laws, some questions come up, they can feel free to contact us. You can shoot us an email or call us and let us know if you have any questions or concerns. So this is the typical client experience. First, you'd learn about the program as you're doing today, and then we would provide a building assessment. And throughout that building assessment, we would go in depth with what exactly your building needs, look into what local laws your building has to comply with. Then together we could see the pain points of your building and decide the energy conservation measures that should be implemented and get you in touch with service providers that could implement said measures. Next, we stay in touch and make sure that the process is seamless and everything was done accordingly. Next, we can dive into Local Law 97. So Local Law 97 was part of the Climate Mobilization Act, and that's one of the largest climate solutions put forth by any city in the world. It consisted of a slate of climate laws designed dramatically to cut carbon emissions across New York City. And central to the Climate Mobilization Act was Local Law 97, which is a first of its kind legislation placing emissions limits on New York City's largest buildings. So here are a few local laws that you may or may not have heard of. Local Law 84 is benchmarking, which is the annual submission of your monthly energy usage. 95 is the posting of the letter ratings based off of your benchmarking data. And 87 is the requirement to conduct an energy audit and retrocommissioning once every 10 years. And that's for buildings that are over 50,000 square feet. Retrocommissioning is kind of like a tune-up for your building, and auditors test the property to make sure that everything is working as it should be. Certain items must be in correction to pass the inspection. So this requirement has gotten a little bit stricter over the years, and now we have 97, which is my focus for today. The Local Law 97 deals with greenhouse gas emissions. And what exactly are those? To help us visualize what exactly greenhouse gas emissions are, here are some smokestacks, and you can see that those contain greenhouse gases. Climate change is caused by greenhouse gases released from burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas for energy. Higher concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere result in a warmer planet, altered weather patterns, and more powerful storms like we're seeing in the past couple of years. So there are two primary ways that the buildings that we operate produce carbon emissions, and that's fossil fuels burned on-site to produce heat and hot water, and fossil fuels off-site to produce electricity, which is then supplied to buildings by the power grid. I think that by even joining this webinar, we're taking steps to learn more about climate change and learn about greenhouse gas emissions and do our part and see what we can do to help the climate crisis. So that's what we're focusing on. Greenhouse gas emissions are contributing to the state of global climate alarm that we're currently in. And these past few years, we've only seen an increase in weather disasters, so we know that we're in a climate crisis. But reducing our energy usage can help us fight climate change. And not only that, but it can also help our properties save money, create a comfortable and healthier building to reside in, and then hopefully, all of these reasons will resonate with you. I also wanted to make note that not all emissions are equal. The emissions from oil, gas are very different from electricity, and the grid is projected to become cleaner in 2030. So that's why we're seeing a push for electrifying buildings. So over here, we can see that Local Law 97 applies to buildings that are over 25,000 square feet. So the first carbon emissions limit will be applied from 2024 to 2029. So that's the compliance period that we're in currently. And the second carbon emissions limit will be applied from 2030 to 2034. So under existing conditions, 89% of properties are projected to meet the 2024 to 2029 limits, and 63% of properties are projected to meet the 2030 to 2034 limits. Now, for houses of worship, you can fall under Article 321, which has varying requirements. So you can either, one, meet the Local Law 97 2030 emissions limit, or you can implement something called the prescriptive pathway, which is the prescriptive energy conservation measures. This is an example property that I chose. This is actually a multifamily building, but you can see the emissions, the threshold, and the penalty. I thought this would be a good visual to use as an example. So over here, we can see the threshold in the orange. So that's basically the emissions limit that you don't want to go over. So this property, for the emissions that it currently has based off of the calendar year 2023 benchmarking data, it's at 242 and the threshold is at 252. So it's not facing any penalties from 2024 to 2029. So it would just be mandated to submit the building's emissions report to verify that. Now, starting from 2030, that's when it starts facing penalties, because as you can see, the threshold becomes more stringent as the years progress. So it drops from 252 to 125. That's what's resulting in the $26,000 of penalties. But you can also see that this building is on fuel oil number 2. So if it were to transition over to electricity, that would have a very big impact on its penalties and it would reduce that. And I wanted to make note that all of this data, it's publicly available. If you contact us, we can look that up for you and give you a personalized report. This is based off of the calendar year 2023 benchmarking data. And here are the two different compliance options for houses of worship. So there's two pathways, like I mentioned before, which is the prescriptive and the performance. For the prescriptive pathway, you would be required to install all of the applicable prescriptive energy conservation measures. And for the performance pathway, you would demonstrate that the building emissions are below the 2030 local law 97 limit. And same thing for both, you'd be required to submit a building's emissions report by a registered design professional. And a registered design professional is a licensed architect or engineer. And the most important date that I want you to remember is May 1st, 2025, because you'll be required to submit a report regardless of whichever pathway you choose. So here are a list of the prescriptive energy conservation measures. All 13 might not be applicable to your building, and some of these are general maintenance measures that you may already be doing. Things like maintaining the heating system, repairing all heating system leaks, insulating pipes for heating or hot water, and then a few of them require attestations, 9. You can see that they're all listed, and we also have on the next slide, depending on the heating system that your building has, you can see the applicable measures for your building based off of that. And this is a screenshot that I took from the Article 321 filing guide. It's a great resource that Department of Buildings recently released, and it goes in depth with all of the measures. So it can tell you exactly what's required. And if you have any questions, you can use that as a guide. So here are a few of the penalty mitigation opportunities. The first is if, for whatever reason, your building goes through an unexpected or unforeseen event of any kind, something like a fire or a flooding of any sort. That's something that Department of Buildings will take into consideration when they're looking into your building and your building's emissions report. For eligible energy conservation projects, that deals more with affordable housing buildings, so we can skip over that and go into the mediated resolution. For the mediated resolution, that's essentially going into a contract with Department of Buildings. If you have a decarbonization plan that might say that you will complete all the measures by a specific date and time that's past May 1st, 2025, it's essentially going into contract with Department of Buildings promising to do so. And if for whatever reason you're not able to complete the measures, then Department of Buildings has full authority to inflict the penalties back onto your building. I also wanted to make note of two penalties. So a failure to submit the building's emissions report has a $10,000 penalty, and a failure to meet either compliance option also has a $10,000 penalty. So that's just something to keep in mind. And here are the important dates to keep in mind to make sure that you submit the building's emissions report by May 1st, 2025. And then also, if you're a house of worship, to verify that you are eligible for the prescriptive pathway, the building must be greater than or equal to classified as A-3 religious house or worship. So what that means is sometimes houses of worship, they can have either daycare facilities, schools, whatever may be attached to the building. So you just want to make sure to verify what your building is classified as. And you can do so with a registered design professional as well. So next steps, what exactly can we do now? I think you can look into solar. Solar has an operating life of 25 plus years. It's low maintenance. It does require direct sunlight, so you'd want to avoid any shading from trees or taller buildings. It's grid connected, but it does not provide any power in a blackout unless any batteries are added. And this is what our solar specialists look into. So New York City Accelerator provides free solar feasibility studies, and all we would need is 12 months of your common area utility bill data. And this is what they look into when they are conducting a feasibility study. So you'd want to make sure there's unobstructed roof area, solar access. They'd look into the condition and the age of the roof, and then also the building height. This is another great option that a lot of houses of worship has taken advantage of. It's called the Green Jobs Green New York Energy Study, and it's offered by NYC. So it's a heavily subsidized study. And it's a low-cost energy study that's used to help identify and analyze any opportunities to make buildings more efficient, and it lowers associated energy costs. It's for not-for-profit buildings that are under 50,000 square feet, and it includes a comprehensive walkthrough of the facility. It includes staff interviews and utility bill analysis. At the end, you'd be provided a report, and that would have a list of energy conservation measures. Depending on the number of full-time employees, if you have 10 full-time employees or less, then the study is only $100. And if you have a bigger building, then you can also look into the Flex Tech study. Depending on if you want like a more comprehensive study, this is similar to an ASHRAE Level 2 energy audit. If you have to comply with Local Law 87, then this is a great option because that's something that you'd have to do once every 10 years anyway. And this goes a little bit more in depth. Same thing, it would identify and evaluate any opportunities to reduce energy costs and then provide recommendations for energy conservation measures for your building. I also want to highlight why benchmarking is important for your building. It provides a general baseline of like the current energy and water usage levels for your building. And that's exactly what we used when we were looking at the calculator previously to make estimates on your local law 97 penalties and the emissions. So that's something that I would definitely start off with reviewing, making sure that you're benchmarking. And if for whatever reason you haven't benchmarked before, there's a bunch of free resources available. The New York City Sustainability Help Center offers free hands-on support, and then you can also work with the service provider at a portfolio level if you're managing a few buildings. Here's our contact information. New York City Accelerator is here to hold your hand through the process. We understand that it's a lot of information, like Dr. Shahar, let us know. It's a lot to throw at you all at once, but at the same time, we are here to hold your hand through the process and make sure that you are taking the steps that you need, not only to reduce your energy usage, but to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you.
And with that, let me turn to Becky, and then we will come back for Q&A.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you. And there are lots of questions, so I will move along so that you guys can get all of the answers. There's a myth that taking action on climate change is expensive, but what we've really found is it's inaction in the face of climate change that is expensive. Yet at Adamah, we recognize that there are often upfront costs to taking action, and we created a climate action fund for members of the Jewish Climate Leadership Coalition to help organizations get over that hump. And I'm going to just share a couple of case studies with you. I want to say that, there's very few Jewish organizations who are in the business of responding to climate change. Of course, Adamah is an exception, but most of you here that you're probably not in your work to do climate change work. But I also think there are zero Jewish organizations who are in the business of sending money to their utility companies. Rather, your organizations are educating Jewish leaders, creating lifelong friendships at college, building meaningful Jewish identities, celebrating Jewish holidays, and so much more. And how wonderful to be able to pursue that mission and send savings to accomplishing what you really exist for rather than to your utility. This grant recipient was able to invest $204,000 up front to do a lighting project, and they're now saving $70,000 a year. And between a grant from Adamah and other support they received, their payback period was under 3 years. And they're saving $70,000 a year in perpetuity. And by the way, that's at today's utility prices. Gas and electric are only going to be going up. So this is actually like a conservative savings. And this is money this JCC is now no longer sending to its utility and can be applying to its actual mission. And this is just one of dozens of examples from our recipients and truly tens of thousands around the country. There's the Westchester Jewish Center in New York invested in solar, and they're saving at least $59,000 a year. And they just feel really proud and celebratory about their huge emissions reductions. And they were able to leverage such substantial rebates that their payback period was just 2 years. And you do not have to be doing projects of these scales to achieve really significant savings. We are really happy with our Climate Action Fund to support much smaller projects, which we'll talk about, but you can get proportionally incredible savings, just like you're seeing on this scale here. I'm excited to share that to date, Adamah has completed 4 rounds of applications, and we've awarded over $250,000 in matching grants and nearly $850,000 in interest-free loans. And the recipients of these projects that you see listed here are saving more than $727,000 a year in utility costs, and they're reducing their over 1,500 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent annually. And again, these are conservatively estimated projections, but that's like taking 358 gas-powered cars off the road for a full year, or the entire electricity usage of 320 homes. And we're now getting to where there are so many recipients, they really don't fit on one slide anymore. I'm gonna have to figure out how to recalibrate this, but this is as good as I was able to do for you guys today. I'm excited to where it's like, oh, we have a problem. They don't all fit. So our Climate Action Fund is designed for projects in 3 categories, and all of them seem to be very well aligned with LL97. And these are sourcing clean electricity, things like getting solar on site or geothermal, going electric, which means getting things that are currently powered by fossil fuels and getting them to be electric powered instead. And then energy efficiency, things like attic insulation, lighting retrofits, HVAC improvements, smart thermostats, et cetera. Our goal is our aim is to fund projects that guarantee permanent, quantifiable greenhouse gas emissions reductions over the long term. So we have 3 funds currently open. We have our North American Climate Loans Funds, and then we have regional grant funds, both in New York, the area we're talking about today, and also in Orange County, California. If you happen to know any folks in Orange County that are your friends or colleagues, you want to make sure they know about this. And the next application deadline is March 31st. And so that's why we definitely want to talk to you today, because this is great timing to learn about this opportunity. We encourage organizations to think big. We'd like to think that the opportunity to take a loan up to $100,000 that has 0 interest should more or less feel irresistible to you. So maybe there's been things you've been thinking about, but maybe you can think more boldly and expansively about the projects you could take on in the coming months. Most projects, once implemented, will start saving you money immediately. So a 0 interest loan should make things feel possible that maybe previously didn't feel possible to you. And if you don't have a single large project like a solar installation, you could consider combining smaller projects to generate a budget that's large enough to justify a loan. Maybe it's time to upgrade your HVAC and insulate the attic and replace inefficient lighting. I will be very glad to take any further questions you might have, but I just want to say that on a personal and professional level, it's very gratifying to see all of you here and to know that there's going to be real meaningful differences as a result of you being here and the work that you're going to do. And we're excited to be in partnership with you. If you are already a member of the Jewish Climate Leadership Coalition, you can find all the information about the Climate Action Fund on our members webpage. And if you're not a member of the coalition, you could sign up as early as the second this webinar ends, and we can get you through our orientation. And then you will then also be able to access all of that information. And I'm sorry I didn't have that information, but Shahar, you may have it. We are having a workshop for coalition members a little later this month, and again, another one in March to support people who are thinking about applying to the Climate Action Fund. So you can look for those on our website as well. And I hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Becky.
so much.
I have a bunch of questions, and some are in the public chat, so keep those coming in. So the first question will be for you, Ayeesha. How to confirm if your building is eligible for the alternative pathways provided by the Article 321 for houses of worship? Another question was, what if the building is older or has historic landmark status? Are there different requirements? How does the change strategies for compliance? So these first 2 questions.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for your question. Thanks for attending. So to verify if you can, or if you're eligible for Article 221, the prescriptive pathway, there is a covered buildings list, but on top of that, we check that, and then on top of that, we'd want to verify what your building is classified as. So if it's 50% or more, classified as A-3 house of worship, and you can see that based off of like what the occupancy group is. Then you'd be considered eligible for the prescriptive pathway. And then you'd also want to verify with a RDP, a registered design professional. So a licensed architect or engineer could also verify that for you. And then when it comes to landmark buildings, there's no like specific compliance, like there's no like covered buildings list for landmark buildings. You'd go the same way. So it's based off of whether or not 50% or more of your building is classified as A-3 house of worship or not.
We have a question from Wayne on the chat, who is asking, we just put in a brand new boiler plant that services 2 buildings on our compound property. It came online 2 months ago. Before that, we had 45-year-old boiler equipment that wasted a lot of energy. When looking at the last 12 months of energy bill, gas, electricity, etc., it wouldn't be an accurate accounting. What would someone like us do in this case?
Depending on the size of the building, that's something that I would recommend actually just contacting me so then we can look at your benchmarking data together. But because the calculator that I showed previously, you can actually see a couple of years of data. So what we could do is we could actually see maybe 2022 or 2023's data. And then on top of that, it depends on the square footage of the building too. I would also recommend, we have a service provider tool on our website. You can hire an RDP, and they could go through the data to verify what your 2024 data looks like and whether or not you're in compliance. But either way, I'll put my email in the chat so we can look into your building specifically.
What are other benefits of reducing emissions, such as those related to building safety and health? And I guess this could go to both you, Ayeesha, and Becky, if you wanna chime in.
Yeah. I think I'll just start off by saying, it's general like comfort, and depending on like the number of people you have in your building, having an energy efficient building, it just makes a world of a difference. And then on top of that, just reducing your energy usage, you can use that save money for other things. Maybe you've been looking into a green roof. That's something that you can implement as well, or solar, or whatever it may be. You can use those cost savings for your building in any way that you'd like. So that's just an opportunity to be creative with your building as well.
We are a Jewish environmental organization here at Adamah, and we're here talking to Jewish organizations. And so one of the privileges I get to have as a environmental activist in a faith-based space is to talk to us about our moral obligation to reduce our contribution to climate change. We are experiencing firsthand what is happening in our warming planet. And we're going to feel a lot better when we've significantly reduced our contributions to that. That is going to feel good, I would say, in our hearts and our souls. It's also going to feel good in our wallets. And as Ayeesha shared, it's going to feel good in the comfort of our building. In terms of safety, the primary one that came up to me is around gas stoves. We are learning that burning gas right there in your kitchen is not good for our health. And so getting gas stoves out of your kitchens and replacing them with electric alternatives is going to be a health improvement. You may have other gas-powered things like furnaces and hot water heaters, but that's less of a pollution factor for human health than the stove thing. So that's the thing that comes to me in terms of safety.
How do we find the professionals to help us get into compliance?
So we have a service provider tool on our website with 100+ service providers. You can choose from any of them. Since we're funded by the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, I can't direct you towards any specific service provider, but we do recommend getting proposals from at least 3. You can also send them over to any account manager that you may be assigned to, and we can help review it with you. But we can't direct you towards any specific one.
Is there funding available to organizations for an RDP to come and assess your building?
I think depending on the building, I would recommend an energy audit is a great place to start. And one of the energy audits that I mentioned, the Flex Tech study, it's pretty subsidized, so they cover 50% of the costs. You can start there. We can also, what we do is we do like kind of like a portfolio assessment just to see which local laws you would have to comply with. Maybe we can help identify any pain points for your building. And then there are also incentives available too, depending on what needs to be done for your building, whether it be from Con Ed or National Grid. We can look into that as well.
In your contractor list, can you also get referrals for firms that do the process and implementation for L97 or any other energy related local laws?
Yeah, so 100%. So you're able to filter it based off of what exactly you need. So maybe you're looking at local law 88, which deals with lighting. You can filter the contractor list that it's only contractors that deal with local law 88 or 97. We can also filter it based off of, okay, do I just need to file for local law 97? Do I need to implement projects? What exactly do I need to do? So you can filter it to whatever your needs are.
I want to turn to Jesse for a minute to share an opportunity that we are providing here at Adamah, New York.
So
ahead,
I'm gonna
Jessie.
share my screen. Adamah, New York has partnered with Incentive Energy and Utility Genius to create this online storefront tool that you're seeing, where you can purchase energy efficient LED lighting equipment at reduced prices. So the storefront instantly applies Con Ed rebates directly to the checkout price of the equipment, meaning you can access the utility discounts without having to apply for the rebates or fill out any complex paperwork. And if you're interested in purchasing lighting equipment, you can visit the website and look at the FAQ page for more information or reach out to me with questions, and I'll share this link in the chat as well.
If you guys have any questions about that, feel free also to take yourself out of mute and just talk. This specific tool just help you with the paperwork instead of purchasing and then applying for the rebates. It's done for you instantly. The only thing to make sure you're paying attention to is that you need to install whatever it is that you're buying within 30 days of purchase. So that's something to keep in mind, but the prices are just really fantastic. This is all the questions that I'm seeing on my end. If anyone wants to mention anything further or ask any other questions, feel free to either write them in the chat or take yourself off mute.
I just wanted to make one comment that we had an organization who was doing lighting work, and they had a staggered multi-year approach that they were planning on taking. And mostly that was budget driven. And after they did the first round of lighting, they're saving so much money. They had said, forget it, we're doing it all now. And they moved forward and they did what had planned to take over 3 years and did it in under 1 year. And so to just say that these numbers are real. And hopefully this feels really exciting for something for you to be part of. And I know many of you here actually are already doing a lot of this work and have your own stories that you can share. So just wanted to share that.
Another question that did come in, do Jewish day schools fall under a different category than faith-based institutions or synagogues, Ayeesha?
So they might not be eligible for Article 321, like the prescriptive pathway. They'd go towards Article 320, the normal performance pathway, what I had the calculator up for. But again, feel free to contact me and then we can look into what exactly the school is like benchmarked as, and we can look at the calculator for your building specifically.
Thank you, everyone. Everything will be shared with you, all the links, the presentations, and as well as the recording of this webinar as soon as it's up on our website. Thank you for joining and please keep in touch. Thanks, everyone.